Hello there, my name is Martin Henley. This is the Effective Marketing YouTube channel. And if you've spent any time here at all, you will know that I am on a mission to give you everything you could possibly need through this channel to be more successful in your business. Now, as far as I'm aware, the only way to be more successful in your business is through your sales and marketing. So not only am I giving you everything I know about sales and marketing on this channel, I am also bringing in anyone I can find and extracting their knowledge for you also. So today's guest has sales experience going all the way back to 1998. I'm sure he won't mind me letting you know that is at least 24 years of sales experience. He actually has 44 experiences on his LinkedIn profile, and 14 of those are current. So this might be the busiest person that we've spoken to so far on this channel. That includes a number of committee and board memberships. He was almost a MasterChef quarter finalist way back in 2008. He is the chief disruptor. Today's guest is Ketan Makwana. How did I do Ketan the second time with the introduction? Let's just check that we are recording. We are recording. How are you, man?
Really good, really good. And yeah, well done, well done.
I think, was it almost better the second time? It almost was.
Yeah. It always gets better. The more you do it, it gets better and better. So let's not go for a third time. Let's leave it there.
We are recording. We are 1 minute and 49 seconds into the recording, so we're doing everything we need to do. Man, thank you so much for agreeing to spend this time with me. I'm really looking forward to this chat because Warren obviously recommended that we speak. Warren is a legend, and everyone he's introduced me to so far has been a legend. Your experience is incredible. I can't believe you've done. I mean, I do believe. I'm not questioning you. What you've done is enormous. So yeah, I'm interested to learn some of this. So your specialist subject is business strategy and kind of launches and scaling businesses. And you've been involved in this in all manner of ways through your own businesses, through partnerships with governments. So I think this is going to be really, really interesting. Is there something you want to say to us before we start? Do you want to let us know how come you're not as good a cook, obviously, as you thought you were?
Wow. How can I start? Well, actually, yeah, it's one of my pastimes is cooking, and I'm not that bad. I just think back then, I guess, being in an environment of competition and TV, and I suppose the occasion got the better of me. So it's no one has actually died from my cooking so far, touch wood. But everything's great on that. And I guess it's been a thing for me where I've always challenged myself to do something out of my comfort zone, to keep pushing the parameters of where I can go, what I can do. So obviously my LinkedIn profile, and as you kind of mentioned, it sounds very busy and very intense, but it's all part of the kind of the challenge I give to myself. How much more can I do? How better can I be? Where I can go. And I think if it's one of those things that I have within myself. So who knows what the next challenge is going to be.
Fantastic. Really cool. Well, I'm really glad that you have your life organized in such a way that you can contribute in all these ways and still have some time to speak to me. So thank you for being so organized and so generous. So kind of the protocol here. There are only 5 questions. The first question is, how are you qualified to talk to us about business strategy? The second question is, who do you work with and how do you add value to their lives? The third question is, what is your recommendation for people who want to get better at their business strategy, or they want to scale their business? The fourth question is, what should people read? And the fifth question is, who can you throw under the bus to have a conversation like this with me? So shall we start at the beginning? How are you qualified? I mean, I know because I've just spent an hour and a half looking at your LinkedIn profile. How are you qualified to talk to us about business strategy?
Well, look, I didn't start off in business. It was from 1998 onwards. It was more kind of being employed. I have a background or career in IT, electronics, healthcare. All of those roles have been in a sort of commercial or strategic positioning. So everything from being seconded to Apple to look at supply chain management for the launch of iMacs, right the way through to building the self-check-in systems and call systems that GP surgeries in the UK have, to doing clinical trials with the world's smallest dialysis machine here in the UK. All of these areas have always had this level of being strategic, being commercially driven, understanding how to sort of undertake projects. After losing my job in 2008 during the economic recession, I went self-employed. I started a consultancy which was looking at building all of these kind of commercial contracts within healthcare and corporate healthcare. So where there were job freezes and they had resource issues, I was primarily coming in and filling in the gaps as an interim. As you will understand, when it comes to sales, marketing, strategy, sometimes your mouth writes checks that your body can't cash, and that's what happened to me. Essentially, I went out and I got so much business, which was great in theory, but actually being able to roll it all out was going to be a challenge. So rather than actually giving up, I then kind of started to employ others, kind of on an outsourcing model, to come in and start to deploy the entities of those projects. That kind of helped me build my first business, which was an outsourcing agency. I went on to sell that agency 18 months later as recruitment freezes started to lift to an ex-Dragon from Dragon's Den. From there on in, I've had a few dabbles in brand marketing with my own agency. Again, the same model: build up projects, outsource the work, keep a kind of royalty or a profit or a margin. And then from there on in, my confidence started to really kind of increase to then build things like Enterprise Lab, which is now over 11 years old, works across 26 countries, recruits over 250 experts to deliver programming for us. So, in between all of this, I've not only worked from a service base where we offer this kind of business strategy, business growth type of service to our clients, but I've been an advisor. I was a special advisor to David Cameron during his reign as the UK Prime Minister, as a special advisor on youth policy. I've done a number of other government advisory roles outside of the UK government, and essentially for me, everything boils down to strategy. And the key message I want to give here right now is strategy doesn't need to be complex. It doesn't need to be complicated. Most people think that you need to have a deep, robust, strong strategy. The more simpler it is, the easier it is to follow, the easier it is for you to be able to achieve the things that you want to do. So throughout the years, I've built a lot of different sort of programming to help entrepreneurs, business owners, business leaders, corporates redefine their strategies. And that's using techniques like reverse engineering and things like that. So I think, over the years, as I've started to refine myself and all of my experiences in the business world, allow me to sort of be an expert in these kind of areas. I think what's actually happened is opportunities have amassed themselves to a way where I can now afford to be in a position where I can choose what I work on, when I work on it, and how I work on it. So, you come back to this whole thing around being organized to give time. Actually, it's all strategy. It's what I designed within myself. I had to recheck. Obviously, everyone had suffered the same challenges during the pandemic. The decisions that you take at this moment in time, at that moment in time, are to make an effect or impact on what my life is today. So being able to operate or be involved in so many different businesses, doing so many different things, but in a way which allows me and affords me to have not just a balance, an equalizer. I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe it's an equalizer that we need to have. So those are the kind of things that I feel qualify me to be able to talk about strategy, business strategy, life strategy, and stuff like that, really.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if advising governments qualifies you, makes you expert enough to speak to my tiny little audience. This is, I mean, this is astounding that this thing has got to this stage already, where I'm talking to people who are who have been special advisors to David Cameron, for example. The thing about strategy is, I really like strategy. I think it's where all the work is essentially done. And then if you've got a good strategy, the implementation should be really simple, straightforward, easy.
Correct.
Businesses and business owners, they don't like strategy.
I don't think it's that they don't like strategy. I think it's they don't understand strategy. That's the most important thing. I think a lot of business owners, when they come into the market space, they come into business because of necessity. Either it's the need to move away from a career and take control of their life, or it's a situation whereby they believe that this is what their calling is. So a lot of the time, business owners come in to into business with a technical expertise, which is normally and the majority of businesses are service orientated rather than product orientated. And even if they are product orientated, those business owners are more technically gifted on the product itself. So whether you're a plumber or you are a widgets sales company, it doesn't matter. You come into business really with that kind of skill of how to apply that trade. You don't really have much inclination, and you don't have much energy towards how does the business need to look, how do I market it, how do I communicate it, um, how do I make my sales, how do I keep all of these things moving forward. And what tends to happen is, as you appreciate this, you are one of everything. You are the marketing department, you're the sales department, you're the finance department, you're the law department, you're the customer service department, you're everything in the business when you first start. And the problem here is that, again, proclivity and inclination towards things like strategy, management, etc., is very, very low at that stage. And you're more inclined to actually say, look, I need to find a customer, supply. I want to be in that kind of delivery space rather than that kind of planning space. And that's what then makes most people that start up businesses fumble. They fumble in the dark. I did it myself. I didn't even know. I went self-employed. I was just doing what I thought was right, what I'd learned from being in corporate and in sales and in other areas during my career. I just went out and I started to pitch. I had no company, I had no website, I had nothing. It was literally just to get out there and get some business. Now, problem is my mouth was writing checks, my body couldn't cash. And then I got to the stage where I thought, oh my God, you've got over 1 million in contracts. Who's going to deliver all of it? Where's the strategy in that? Then I kind of started to think, well, the best way I know how to handle this is in this environment. Little did I know that would then lead to something else, and then that would lead to something else. So what I tend to find is a lot of business owners don't embrace business strategy into the earlier conceptions of their business because it's not in their inclination, it's not in their sphere. You know, if you ask 100 business owners, why did you get into business? The majority of them will be it's because they want that freedom formula. They want to have control over their own life and their own earnings. They want to add value to where they're going. Now, once you start to define what is successful in a business and not successful, the underlying factor with that is strategy. People who are not successful in business, and what I mean by that is success is the distance between your expectation and your delivery, not anything else. Success and failure builds on this. If your expectations are too high and your delivery is not good enough, that gap between that you see right now is not my face, it's failure. And the whole purpose of this is you've got to readjust your expectations and you've got to readjust your delivery as you come up. And that slowly starts to reduce the gap in the failure that you would have moving you towards success. And that, my friend, is what we call strategy. Strategy exists across every aspect of the business, whether it's a financial strategy, a marketing strategy, a sales strategy, a human resource strategy, a people strategy. Everything requires a strategy. But remember that strategy isn't planning. Planning is something completely different. Strategy is your blueprint. It's your methodology. The other reason to why a lot of people have, when they start off in business or are trying to grow or sustain or scale their business, um, have challenges is because what they define as their strategy when they start is still existing a year later. But everything's changed. Everything has changed. Time has moved on, and you need to keep your strategy moving along with your business and your time. So if you are trying to build a 2022 business on a 2020 strategy, you're outdated already. You're not gonna get to where you want to get to. And it's again that inclination of everything needs to constantly be reviewed, monitored, adjusted, and changed. So for me, these are the kind of biggest. I wouldn't say flaws. It's because it's not a flaw. It's a natural thing. People like myself have a background of a career that spanned about 10 or 12 years, where I was immersed in strategy all the time. So I came out of a career knowing nothing else but how to build a strategy and execute, how to build a strategy and execute. And perhaps that's been a mark of why I've had so many successes in what I've done. I'm not saying that I haven't had any failures. I have had some major failures, but it's all about how you adopt all of this in. So I think for anyone that's watching this or listening to this right now, and you are either thinking about starting up, or you have recently started up, or you're at a stage where you did start but you're hitting a wall, the first thing that you need to ask yourself is, do you have a strategy? And if you do, what is it? When was that strategy first developed? And when was the last time you audited what you were actually doing to see if it was really relevant to where you're going? We can't live in the future, and we can't affect the past. We can only impact or influence where we are now and today. So that's one of the kind of biggest things that I would start to say in any kind of area, because a lot of people, they get into this mindset that, the next door neighbor business, my competitor is doing this, so I've got to do it. And that's that whole looking at the top 3% of the iceberg above the false reward. They don't really understand what's going on underneath. And then there's this whole thing of perception that people have. Again, use the analogy of a swan, glides above the water but flaps manically underneath, to create that acceleration. In my opinion, why do people come to us? Yes, they want to advance, they want to grow, but the truth of it is they've now started to come to the acceptance that they don't have the right strategy, they don't have the inclination to build the right strategy, and they need people around them that will help them get to where they want to get to. And that's a very important indicator to the people that we work with. It's important that people have that sense of attitude or approach to what they're about to do, because it's no point coming to me and saying, I want you to make my business bigger, but then not listen to anything that I say to you, or reject or dispute. What's the point in paying me for that type of service when you're not going to take it on board? So there is this whole kind of open and feel, and that's the hesitation that I see a lot of in the market. A lot of people are worried. A lot of people get concerned and worried. If it's okay with you, let me just take you back to around 20.
Okay, but you're saying so much, and I've got so many questions already. And
Yeah, sure.
can
Yeah.
can I fire some questions, and then
Yeah,
will you remember to go
absolutely.
back? Okay, before I
Of course.
forget. Okay, so in my introduction, I say to people the only way I know to make your business more successful is to be better at your sales and marketing, to be effective with your sales and marketing. And I've kind of got to the position where I think everything in business is essentially sales and marketing. It's how everything gets paid for. But of course, there are other aspects to this. There's the delivery, but for me, that's still sales and marketing. If your product is of poor quality, you're not going to retain customers. The only aspects that probably aren't are the legals, the financial, maybe the actual HR policy, but that's also a pitch for your staff. So the question I have for you is, I've come to the conclusion that everything in business is sales and marketing, but how much of a business is actually sales and marketing, would you say?
It's a good question. It's a really good question. And in my honest opinion, in the earlier stages of your business, it's a very high percentage. You've got to give a lot of your the importance or value to sales and marketing. More say even your marketing before your sales. Sales is important, as you kind of outlined there, because that brings the revenue into the business. Obviously, how you modeled your commercials will then determine if you can make margin and profit, which you then reinvest. But in order to make the sale, you have to first be marketable. You've got to be visible. People. So I have this process that I normally engage our clients into. It's called AIA. Awareness, information, action. So the first thing ever you have to do, and this is the principle of marketing, you have to make people or your audiences aware that you exist. Otherwise, how will they know to come to you? Once they know that you exist, the next thing is you have to inform them about what you do and why, in what relation does it have to them. Now, a lot of people, and when you go through marketing, they talk about pain points and all this kind of stuff and how you overcome the pain barriers, etc. There is a little bit more empathy in this, where when you're building a marketing strategy, you want to be already inside the head of your client before they even know you exist. That's the secret, because just like you've got questions coming up that you want to ask me that you've been writing down. You say, I want to ask you them before I forget. The human psychology or the brain is built in a way where as soon as you open one question, the other one is actually starting to form itself. So there is a part of it's in the synaptics towards the back end of your brain where your memories are also built, is where the triggers of these questions come from. Now, in your information piece, if you can answer all of those questions, believe me, this is what will draw people to say, hush up and take my money. Or they'll be like, oh my God, you get me, you understand me straight away. And that's automatically the audience selling to themselves, or it will prime you up ready to be able to make that kind of sale. So it's so fundamentally important that you've got your marketing on point, because that's what's going to attribute to the success of your sales. And the sales, just like you've expressed there, is very, very important, because if you don't have sales, you don't have the customers, you don't have the money, you can't, there's no cash in the business, there's no business there to operate on that.
See, I say to people that being in business is an exercise in finding, I'm having to adjust this now because it's 2022, let's say attracting, winning, and keeping customers profitably is what being in business is. And that essentially for me is the definition. I love what you're saying, because I've said it also, something similar. So I say to people that the difference between your expectation and your reality is the cause of the stress. So if you're expecting something much better and you get something much worse, then that is going to cause you to be stressed. Now, my experience is not in offering business strategy. It's in offering marketing strategy. And the response I very often get is that people don't have time for strategizing. Something has to be happening all of the time. And the analogy that keeps coming around in these conversations is about the fact that you have to sit a driving test before you can drive a car, but you don't have to have any qualification whatsoever before you run a business. And the other thing that occurs to me is that when you're driving a car, if something's going wrong, you don't push your pedal to the metal harder and just hope it will all be okay. You stop and you have a little assessment of what's going on before you carry on. Whereas in businesses, what people do is they just have to keep producing, keep churning, keep doing.
Mm.
And I suppose it's a little bit like if you get in trouble in open water and you start flailing around, that's how you're going to use all of your energy. That's how you're actually going to drown. But if you can calm down, have an assessment, have a think, maybe make a plan, then your chances of survival are that much greater, I would suggest.
You are right. So one of the things that I used to talk a lot about in some of my keynotes back in sort of 2015, 16 was this thing called PPF factor that I kind of came up with: pain, panic, and fear. These are the three natural blockers to your progression. You know, pain is a thought blocker. So think about stubbing your toe. When you stub your toe on the corner of the bed or a table, you're not thinking about what you want to eat that night. You actually are you're focused wholly on where the root of that pain is. You know, and eventually what happens is the pain starts to subside, and then it's a throbbing effect. Eventually, a couple of hours later, you don't even know that you can't even remember that you knocked your toe against the corner of the table. The panic factor is where people lose control. So you use the analogy of if you're driving a car and something's going wrong, you don't put your pedal to the metal, but immediately people start thinking, oh my god, what is it? Where is it coming from? How is it? Da, da, da. And that panic sends you to lose control. So if I put you into an analogy of a situation where someone is hyperventilating, what do? We give them a paper bag to re-regulate their breathing, to help them come back into a level of control. And then fear, as the acronym, false evidence appearing real. So this is where, and I think when you were describing what you were describing in this segment here, the only two words that came to me were busy and fools. People become very busy. They have to keep things moving. They have to keep running, keep going. If they don't, everything's going to collapse. And that's that false evidence appearing real. It's okay to stop. In fact, it's more important that you stop. Take a check, whether it's 30 minutes, 30 hours, or 30 days, it doesn't matter. The world is not going to collapse around you. I'd rather go back out into the market, better aligned, better assigned, better understanding where my potholes and gaps are with my leaky bucket, than actually keep filling the bucket more and more with more and more leaks coming out of it. Because again, if you take the analogy of a crack on a wall, a hairline crack, if untreated, will become a major gap, which eventually will break that wall. So for me, it's when you encompass or experience those kind of situations, it's better to come to a grinding halt. Okay. But at that point, it's to remember that whatever you're feeling as pain is temporary, as long as you learn to let go of it. If you don't, it will be with you for the rest of your business life. Stop panicking, okay? Because you're now losing control. You're now starting to push into all the areas of the things that you cannot do. Start thinking about the things that you can do, okay? And then with the fear thing is continuation is not going to get you out of this problem, and stop thinking about what's going to happen in the future. Because like I said earlier, we can't live in the future and we can't change what's in the past. We can only be where we are here and now today. So these kind of small steps of slowing down, calming down, as you mentioned there, I think those are brilliant things, because once you calm yourself down, you can be a lot more clearer. You can be a lot more open. You can be a lot more transparent. You can also be a lot more honest. And it's at this point that you can move forward.
Okay. So this is the other thing. I've only been involved in offering marketing strategy. So I think the other reason that I might have faced resistance, the first thing is they don't want to, like, something has to be happening all the time. There is no time to slow down and think and talk about things. Something has to be happening. The second thing then is that the marketing people are speaking so much BS that maybe they just don't want to spend time speaking to marketing people. And then the third thing that's only occurring to me now is what you're saying now about this honesty thing. Do they really want to face up to the
Yeah.
difficult questions, because maybe coming back to the fear, they are imagining these problems to be much bigger than they really are. They don't want to sit down and assess in case they are that big or even bigger than they imagined.
Yeah, no, I'll be honest with you. I think, I'll be quite frank. Uh, since the introduction of digital marketing, the whole industry has started to get tainted the same way life coaching has been. In this kind of area, you've got these people that have come forward who are not content creators, who kind of have probably copied a system that they saw somewhere else and kind of claiming it to themselves and imposing that on a business owner. It's almost like business owners fear marketing, but they feel that they've got to become marketing geniuses. I fell into that trap about 6 years ago. I fell into this trap where I've got to become a regular poster, a community holder. I've got to be able to add value, show up and serve and all this kind of stuff. And as much as I enjoyed doing it when I first started, I got to a stage where I was hating the fact that I had to post something, or I hated the fact that I was about to start a live. But then I was kind of going through that. Now, when your heart feels that way, but your head's doing something different, trust me, it's your heart that shows. So what you're actually doing is, by living that lie to a certain extent, you're undoing all the greatness that you've already done in the past, because people can see that, they feel it, and that will kind of detract them away. For me, I think it's important to understand that, yes, there are things that must go on and continue to go on. If you get to 10 no's, you go to 11. If you get to 100 no's, you go to 101. You've got to keep moving forward. But don't move forward in a blind way where, if you have put, I don't know, £300 a month into Facebook advertising, for example, and you're not getting anything, that you carry on doing £300 of Facebook advertising. Because a lot of people also have this expectation that I've put £300 in, so I should get a lead tomorrow. And believe me, I know thousands, tens of thousands of people who will put a post on social media, and then within 3 minutes of posting, they'll be going to see how many likes that they've got. And then every 5 minutes thereafter, they'll keep going back and seeing how many likes. And then what they do is they build this whole scenario that doesn't exist. That, why isn't anyone liking my post? Why is it this post of a cat falling out of a tree got 6 million views and I can't even get 5 people to like? And that is the start of the hairline crack starting to reopen itself. I think it's important that business owners value the importance of marketing, but also release themselves to say that maybe we aren't the right people to be doing that. And actually, they should be instructed and directed, rather than actually the producers of this kind of content. As I say, a lot of people come into business with the technical ability, not the business ability. So
Yes.
running the business is not their forte. Doing the business, whatever that service is or product is their technical ability. So for me, if a marketing campaign isn't working after a period of time, I don't keep it on, or I don't temper it down. I stop it, even if I had to stop it for just a week. And I want to ask myself the questions. But equally, the bit that most people won't tell you, we do the same when it's successful. Because why is it successful? What's the driver? Because we learn from the success rather than as much as we learn from the failure of it. Has it superseded? There was a situation where one time my team put a post on LinkedIn, okay, and overnight it got something like 20,000 clicks to it, and it got like 500,000 views to it and stuff like that. And we're just like, how the hell was that? Now, normal people would actually get really excited and they'll try and say, right, this is it. This is all I've got to do. Keep doing it. It was a complete freak of nature to what happened there. Okay, we went in, we measured the success, we understood the success, we understood what is it that we've got to take from this that we've got to continue doing moving forward. Because the next post that went on got 256 likes, not 20,000 likes. So all of a
Yes.
sudden, situation here that marketing itself as well is not a consistent activity. It's not something that sits and delivers results like this. It can be a very erratic chart, just like your mindset or your emotions. When you post, what you post, how you post it, what's your engagement, what's your CTA, all these things need to be kind of realigned and repositioned. And now with so many diverse ways of marketing, you've got the traditional Facebook kind of targeted ad posts right the way through to now TikTok, which is more impactful in a completely different way, requires a different strategy to it. But if we put this pressure back on the business owner who has no inclination in being the marketer, what happens is they try, they don't succeed, and then they carry on floating. Now they're skeptical. So when a marketing agency contacts them and says, we can get you leads, they're like, I've heard this before.
Yes.
Okay. And then kind of like, I don't want to part with my hard-earned cash. And then the marketing agency is like, look, we've got these results before. The problem is now the heart's not in it for the business owner. So no matter how hard that marketing agency tries, they're never going to get the results that they want.
100%. And the thing is, if you are just doing and you don't know why you're doing and you don't actually have an expectation of what the right result is,
Yep.
then how are you ever going to succeed? You've got
How
no,
would you
like,
know?
when
How would you know you succeeded? This
exactly,
is the
yeah.
thing.
So this is the issue. There's no end to this unless you've defined an end. So for me, when I put a marketing strategy, it's 70% situational analysis, because where you're going to end up, the biggest determinant to that is where you are right now. I might want to go to Rio for the carnival, but the truth
Yep.
is I'm tens of thousands of miles away from Rio and I've got to do a lot to get there. If I happen to be in, I don't know, Buenos Aires, then me getting to Rio for the carnival is much more likely. Um, and I think especially when it comes to marketing, like if you are going to be in business with Google and Facebook and maybe TikTok and YouTube, you better know that they have a strategy for taking your money.
Of
And
course.
if you haven't, they're going to win every single time.
And they
So,
do.
and they do win every single time. Yeah. I mean, and so it it blows my mind that people are so resistant to. I don't know. Okay,
I
so
tell you what.
here's my experience. My
Yeah.
experience is lots and lots and lots of small businesses who are completely resistant to it. They don't want to do this. So literally, we had to market ourselves as the tactics, because people want to buy email, they might want to buy telemarketing or Google Ads or whatever it might be. So we had to position ourselves as those things to get the inquiry, and then we couldn't mention strategy, but obviously we'd have to include some strategy or else it would fail. So this is the way
Yeah.
we kind of got around it.
Yep.
Medium-sized businesses are easier for us. They have a strategy. Somebody's done it. It may not be good, but they've come up with a list of to-dos, and as long as those to-dos happen, then they're happy, and that is more successful. But that's kind of
Yep.
my experience. So I don't want to be down. I don't want to say every business is like this, but
No.
I've only dealt with 1,000 businesses, so maybe I don't know.
So look, you are right. Generally, you're right. Now, it's not to. I'm not putting you down, Mr. Startup owner or Mrs. Early stage startup. At the end of the day, we're not. I'm not saying that you're not capable of it, but everything that you just described there falls under strategy,
Yes,
measurement, target, the route. So at the
objective.
end of the day, today, exactly. If we go back 15 years, not even 15 years, if we go back 5 to 10 years, um, we were still traditionally reliant on maps, to take us to where we want to. Had paper maps, we would open them up, we'd stop on the road trip, figure out where we're going, or if we get lost, we have to stop and read the map. As technology adopted itself we've got maps on our phones, got GPS, and now you can actually have this guide you or redirect you and stuff like this. What has it done? It's actually made us more lazy, and it's made us less smart. And this is the same thing that happens in strategy when people come into business and they don't understand. If they're given a traditional way of building a strategy, they would look at it, they'd affect it, they'd work on it, they'd understand this is where the gap is, this is where the risk is. They've got everything set. the more systems come into place that automate things. So your finances, you can have things like QuickBook or Xero or Sage, etc. It takes you away from understanding how cash flow works in your market because it's computerized. It does it for you.
Yes.
Email marketing, automations, things like active campaigns or CRMs. Okay. Now I'm not discounting it. We need to move. We need to move with the times. We've got to become digital. We've got to become technical. But everything that we build has a factor of limitation to it. All this technology that comes in that makes it easier for you to run your business has one common denominator or factor, and that's you need to understand how it works to be able for it to do what you want it to do. Otherwise, it's again the blind leading the blind. It's only a system. The system is built through the parameters of what you have. So if you come out without a strategy, it's like you blacking your eyes out and saying, right, that's it. I'm going out into the world and I'm going to get more clients. And what you do is you use the emotion of euphoria and optimism and enthusiasm as your strategy.
And you
But
end up
guess what?
killing
All of
yourself.
that is it's all like hot air.
Yeah.
Eventually it kind of push out the balloon, then you've got nothing left. And it's at that point you business owners then have this negligence about them where they think it's not me, it's the business.
Yes.
How am I expected to be a marketer and a technician at the same time? Well, we've been telling you that since day dot, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of a situation where you are absolutely right. That there are certain habits, certain things that people will do. Now, whether you've spoken to just 10 businesses, worked with 1,000 businesses, or thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of businesses, it's the same denominator. Whether you go to a startup, whether you go to a SME or even a corporate. We work with people like Raiffeisen Bank across 4 countries, and we do all business innovation work with them. So how do we internally innovate their business practices? We run a champions program for another bank where their top 3% of their employees are put into an accelerator to forward build the next strategies for the bank to move into its competitive space. Why do people invest in all of that at that level? Is because without a strategy, you haven't got a map. Without a map, you haven't got a route. Without a route, you haven't got a journey. And without that journey, you haven't got anything to aim for, go for, or achieve.
You haven't got a destination. It's like, where on earth are you going? It's like, and why are you even going there? It's insane.
Correct.
And I think what happens is that this proper thinking, planning, assessing where you are, where you want to be, what you've got to invest to get there, what actually getting there looks like is really dangerous. And I
Yeah.
think it's replaced with like these tropes about like persistence is key. Like, seriously, if everyone's telling you no, or it's just feeling like it's too difficult, it's probably too difficult. Have a little sit down and a think and see if you can work out why maybe it's too difficult. Do you know what I mean? It's,
Hundred
but
percent.
yes, but
Just to add on to that point, the amount of pressure that business owners put on themselves, and when we
yes,
work with them and we say it's okay, you don't have to do this, and they're like, "What? No, 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 I must." Look, I've been told, I've been conditioned. The media, everyone's conditioned me in this way to say, and I said, "No, this is what we'll do for you." Really, it's like a weight lifted. Now, when the weight lifts, there is a release, but it's important that the business owner or the entrepreneur at that point takes that energy and refocuses it into where their genius is.
yes,
If they are the face of the business, continue to be the face of the business. Okay, if only work in the areas that you're qualified to work in. Now, when someone hears that and you're like, I've heard this before. Anyone listening to this or watching this right now, yeah, I've heard that before, plenty of time. Go and get other people, build a team. It's all right for you, Kat, and you can say that. You've done this. There was a day where it was just me on my own. Okay,
yeah.
what does it take? It takes humility. You've got to first say to yourself, I am not the expert of this, and I shouldn't be. We all have heard the saying that Steve Jobs has said, if you're the smartest one in the room, then you're in the wrong room, etc. It's all hearsay in that. The truth of it goes down to, are you honest enough, and do you believe enough in yourself and the esteem that you have within yourself for your business that you're willing to actually push out there? Because if I said to you right now, iPhone 14 is coming out, immediately there'd be a line of millions of people ready to spend 1,500, 1,600 pounds on a phone. Okay. Yet, if we ask them to actually put £500 into a marketing strategy for their business, no, I couldn't do that.
Yeah, 100%. And this is kind of one of the recurring themes. I spoke to Barnaby Winter. It hasn't gone up yet.
Yeah.
But I spoke to Barnaby, and but not for the reason that I'm saying, is like one of his things is work out what you need to sell and sell that. And this is something that I was saying to people when I started my business in 2005, because there's no cap, like there's never enough. So you always have to have more customers, more customers, more customers.
Yeah.
But what people don't seem to understand is that when it comes to customers, less is definitely more. There's less that can go wrong. There's less complaints that can happen. There's
Correct.
less reputational risk. But the belief in people's minds is that they need more customers and they need more transactions. And so this just perpetuates forever.
You're absolutely right. Value over volume.
Yep.
Pride over passion.
Yep.
Take pride in what you do rather than being just passionate about it. I think those two things are very important. And to add to what Barnaby has said to you, I would say sell the solution, not the problem. Too many people spend too much time talking about the problem, thinking that that's what's going to get people to buy. But just go out there and tell, this is what I do, this is how I do it, and this is the result that you get.
Yeah.
Now, you are not designed for everyone. You're not going to get everyone to like you or want you and need you. I mean, when we started 77, the tail end of last year, my VC, the business strategy that we have in there is that we are going to take our time. We're not going to just open the floodgates and let pitch decks come in and start doing investments. I want to do some very, very high level stuff, which we understand the strategy. It's a long play. It will take a long time. But when we drop that first project, it's so big, it's so visible that it will then attract the right type of client to us. So people will start to understand if we are right for them as much as they are right for us.
Yes.
And we have that as it's not a principle, it's a policy within it's a policy within the business. Part of our business strategy is pride over passion. I'm passionate about launching businesses and helping entrepreneurs and going to grow. But my pride says that when we do it to the best of our abilities and work only with the finite people that we know that we can take to the promised land, and value over volume. I've got to make sure that the person is in my ecosystem because they're meant to be there, because I can give them value. Because that's the other side of this. It's not about having more and more customers. Sometimes it's about holding on to your customer as long as you can, because
100%.
you think they want to run away with this. And when you get into that, you are not serving in a business. You're not providing value anymore. You're hostile. You're very you're holding them to ransom. It's almost like you become a terrorist rather than an optimist, and in that particular way. And I think that starts to seep toxicity into your business, and that will then have an impact on your marketing, and that will have an impact on your sales. So
Yes.
These are just small triggers that people, I guess, they're aware of them, but they're not actively conscious of them.
I think and they're driven by these tropes. You need more customers, you need more sales. This is the way business goes. Persist, persist, persist.
It's all perceptional. Let me ask you a question. Which is heavier, a ton of feathers or a ton of iron? Which is heavier?
You don't want me to answer that question.
I do.
They both weigh a ton. But the packaging, like the mechanism for lifting the ton of feathers, might actually weigh something as well.
But look at that. You are going through, you're now creating complexity or something which doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
That's the human psychology. When we ask that kind of question, I can guarantee you 7 out of 10 people immediately thinking the iron is heavier. It's a perception thing. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
What they do is they act. They act on a perception, which is reaction rather than response. You
Yes.
took some time there and you built yourself in. You didn't just come out with it straight away and say, "Oh, easy."
It's not the
You
first
know,
time I've heard the question, to be honest with you. But you're
and
right. It's like, and the thing about the pride and the thing about the ego is that businesses are pride and ego driven, and
yeah.
this also, I think, creates the pressure situation. Now we're
So let
almost
me
segueing into, yeah,
Yeah, so I just wanted to add, I want to come back to just give you that snippet of story that I was talking about earlier, because this is kind of really a good relevant piece for this about ego, about everything else. So, February 2020, I was in Thailand. I was literally finishing up my work with the government there on our program. We have a 6-year contract to deliver all of this SME innovation stuff. I boarded a plane and I was reading the news about 83 cases in Thailand for the COVID-19, and they said Thailand's the hotspot. You don't want to go Thailand, and I'm like, I'm a glutton for punishment. Everywhere I flip and go, there's always some sort of I've been on, I've been in North Abuja, I've been on South Sudan, I've been in Honduras, in San Pedro Sula, which is the murder capital of the world. All these kind of areas of cutting edge. Anyway, I was boarding my flight. I sit down and I had this innate feeling that I need something's gonna happen, to us. Not back in the UK. Nothing immediately, but over time. If you think about it, if this virus is spreading itself from China into Thailand, it's going to come across from the Asias. Lo and behold, we were locked down in the UK by March. And as a business owner with an international company where we're always traveling, we're always face to face, I had to make some real tough decisions. I had to look at my strategy and say, what's working, what's not working. The two things that I sat down on the plane for that 18 hours journey back, what I was discussing in my mind and writing out were two things: capability and capacity. Well, let me repeat those again: capability and capacity. Number one, the question I was asking is, does our business capability need to change? Do we need to have capability in other areas than just what we work on? Talent innovation, business innovation, all these kind of areas. And the second area about capacity was very much, do I have enough capacity in the business to be able to take on these types of clients or this type of business? Or do I need to change a few things in the business there? It resulted very quickly where by the time I got back home, I sat down, I laid out my strategy, I spoke to my board, and then I said, look, I've made this decision. I said, right, all our corporate contracts, people were like 10 a penny. They were like, we're canceling. I said, no one is to cancel any contracts. I go, freeze them and give them pro bono service until such time that we're ready to renegotiate the contracts. Anyone that wants to do startup stuff, unfortunately, we're no longer offering that service, but we will recommend you to any one of our partners in the market space. Okay, SMEs and large organizations. What we wanted to focus on is no longer scale, growth, anything. It was two things: crisis management and business continuation. I flipped the whole model of the business. I then wrote a personal letter to every single person in my organization to say, don't worry, we've got enough cash in the bank to pay you. We've got enough business coming in to support you through these periods of uncertainty. So I had to change and adopt this kind of thing. I had to swallow a bit of my own personal pride and say, maybe we're not going to get 20 projects from 26 countries. I had to start to remove and be have enough humility to understand that these people aren't right for us right now. Okay. So as we turned the whole business model, inverted it around and just worked on business continuation and crisis management, we recorded our highest revenue and profit for the history of the company in that financial year. primarily because of those two things, capability and capacity. And the reason I'm bringing it at this stage, if any of you have suffered, struggled during the pandemic, and you're kind of really now starting to see your chin come above the water again, but you're doubtful, you're nervous, you're anticipating something else to come in, or you're at a situation where your business was completely annihilated because of these kind of things, your inner confidence has gone in your business, your marketing's not right. I want you to just focus on two things: the capability and the capacity. Where should you be focusing your abilities, and how much should you be doing right now? They're the only two things, because when you get the answers to that, it will be that weight lifting off your shoulders, that you don't have this expectation that you need 10,000 customers, because the road to a million is you can have one customer that pays you 1 million, or you could have 1 million customers that pay you one. And there's a whole set of different product sets or groups along that kind of journey. So think about your capability. If it's gone down, it's gone down. So what? That doesn't mean that you're not able to serve the market. And think about your capacity. How much can you take on right now? We talked about this earlier on, where you were saying that, I've got all of these different things on my LinkedIn and still 14 active. How do I do all of that? Capability and capacity. I've made decisions within my businesses that I'll only be a factor in a particular level, which frees me to do the things that I'm most passionate about. But at the same time, I'm driven to say, right, these are the kind of goals in my capacity that I want to achieve within the next 2 years, so I can focus into those kind of things. So it's not about comparing yourself to any other business out there. It's more about being open and honest with yourself. How much capability do I have in this area? And capabilities should my business have? And how much capacity do I have? And if it means that you're deciding now to change your client avatar, do it at this moment in time. But take your time, build it up, build the strategy, validate it all. Don't just hop and jump and say, right, I've moved from startup to SME, because that's what Ketan did, and he had his best financial year. Don't compare, because you're looking at the swan at the top of the water and
Yeah.
not underneath.
But I think that's really important as well, is because in my experiences, I've not thought about it in these terms, obviously, but any sense of what people are capable of or what they have the capacity to deliver went out of the window a long time ago. And they've just been running at 1,000 miles an hour just to keep up, specifically because they haven't considered those two factors. And the other thing that I wanted to say before is that businesses need to be selective about who they take on as their customers. They should so you should have enough spare in your business. Clearly, you had spare in your business at the beginning of the pandemic. You could go to all of your staff and say, we're going to continue paying you. That's not the case for the majority of businesses that I know. So yeah, I think it's really important.
We didn't. It's not just the furlough part there, in the sense of we weren't going to just furlough. We never furloughed. We never took a penny from the government. We always build into the business that you should have enough money, revenue in the business to be able to operate for 12 months. If there was no business coming in for at least 6 months, you're still going to be able to survive, because there are things that will affect the market. I couldn't predict what was going to happen. I could never have known the intensity of what COVID-19 was going to present. But what I could do is create a response to it rather than a reaction. Most people react to these things. And that's where they start battening down the hatches. They start, right, I'm sorry, I'm going to let you go, da, da, da. What are you doing when you let people go? You're taking the life and the expertise and the resource out of your business. It's like cutting both your arms off. Now, try and use the fork and knife. You haven't got anything to do it. So it's rather than panic and react, become calm and build a response. That's the most important thing.
Okay, and what I was saying to people back in March, I wasn't saying very much because I'm not very engaged. I didn't have clients that I had to have conversations with necessarily. I had 2 clients, is the truth. And what I was saying to people is that the pandemic was the biggest of one of two things. It was either the biggest excuse you're ever going to have. So if you want to fail, now's your time. You can get out. Nobody's going to blame you. Or
Yeah.
the biggest opportunity you're ever going to have.
Yeah.
And there's no in the middle. You can't sit in the fence. So either, and literally, I had two clients. One of them took the opportunity. Easter, they were all in 12 hours a day over Easter. And the other one took the opportunity to fail. So that's the way it occurred to me. Do you want the good news, Ketan?
Go on.
You've answered the first question. I'm happy that you're qualified to talk to us about strategy.
Now to the other four.
Now to the other four questions. So I'm interested. Where we are is we're at an hour. Are you still cool?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm really
Okay,
enjoying
cool.
this.
So I'm really interested to hear a bit about kind of the types of people and organizations that you work with and what you do for them. I'm interested especially in like the youth stuff. I'll tell you what my interest is. My interest is that I was a Larry kid when I was at school. And when I look back, it was obvious to me that I was born for a career in sales and marketing. Like all of the disruption I was doing, getting everyone's attention, get everyone laughing, being friends with everyone, made
Yeah.
me biologically predetermined for a career in sales and marketing. But I
Yeah.
didn't know what sales was when I left school. So this
Yeah.
idea of investing in the youth, I think, is really interesting. Of course, I don't know if that's got anything to do with what you've been up to, but I'm interested to hear.
Well, so obviously my career has always been around sales, marketing strategy, networking, all of that kind of area. As I moved into the world of self-employment and then entrepreneurship or business ownership, this is what my calling was going to be. I was always going to be a consultant or a service provider. I was never going to be built into products. I'm not a product man per se. So when I first started, my value proposition was really about supporting people who have lost their jobs or have fallen victim to redundancy, a bit like I had. So why could I do that at that moment in time? Primarily because I was in the same boat. I qualifies me to say, look, it's not about I brushed my act up. I found something, I was able to leverage on it and start to build my own personal income. So so the kind of work that I was doing at that time was, you could say, it's personal development. It was personal development of an individual, but through the channel of providing them opportunities to be able to deliver their expertise. So my outsourcing agency was bringing in people. I was mentoring them up. I was training them into how to become self-employed, giving them these opportunities to then procure their trade, and then actually they could earn income from that kind of basis. As I moved to Enterprise Lab first started primarily in the youth space. So in 2011, the UK had riots all across the UK, and a lot of this was placed, or the blame was placed on young people. And it cost the economy quite a lot in terms of damage, and society had all of this impact, and there was this whole thing called the missing millions, which were a million young people who were unemployed, not in employment, training, or any form of sort of services. So as I started to introduce the concept of Enterprise Lab, I also came up with an event called Youth Enterprise Live. And that was a showcase event which brought entrepreneurship or business, education, and enterprise and employability all together. It's like a glorified job fair or something like that. It's targeted to young people to say, if you believe there are no opportunities, stand up, come to this, and let us show you where all the opportunities are. And it was an opportunity for the industries to actually remove the veil that they put in front of things, protecting themselves from young people. This is where the Prime Minister got involved. I got him to support the event by endorsing and writing a letter to it. And in October 2012, I ran Youth Enterprise Live, which impacted 18,500 young people. We gave away £750,000 of funding through the government's initiatives, which I later on went on to actually take from pilot to mainstream. It's called the Startup Loan Scheme. And I also, we gave away 300 jobs and 3,000 apprenticeships, £150,000 worth of social enterprise funding for young people to do community-based projects from people like Telefonica or O2 and stuff like that. So for me, back then I had no real experience in building events, but I had a mission of what I wanted to try and reconnect. That allowed Enterprise Lab to really get onto the map with working with young people. So we started to do this whole bridge between academia and industry, helping education leavers really immerse themselves into the industry. That kind of went from college to universities, then to small businesses, to SMEs and the corporates. And then, with the work that I had going alongside me at Downing Street, I was also then asked to join the advisory board for the British Council on Enterprise Africa, and UKTI, who are now DTI, because I was obviously integral within the government, they would kind of pimp me out around the world to do the Britain is Great type of campaigning for entrepreneurship. So this is where I thought I was going to get all of the Dubai, the New Yorks and everything. Actually, I was sent to San Pedro Sula, I was sent to South Sudan, I was sent to Abuja, I was sent to all of these kind of countries where it was almost war torn. I was told by the United Nations at one point, if the Sudanese government understand that I'm here doing this kind of work, they could extradite me or deport me for it was all that kind of jazz, basically. But the truth of it is, this is where the core of my work started. I was pushing out all the barriers of being, staying true to where I was. I've always been in the people development kind of space, but I've used other mechanisms to deliver that result. So whether it's business training, workshops, keynotes, whatever it needs to be, that's how it kind of all stemmed up. As we start to progress through, because of my international work with, on behalf of the UK government, as a brand, as an individual brand or a personal brand, your business brands follow you with you. So when people look at you, they look what's behind you. So it's the whole, is it Richard Branson and then Virgin, or is it Virgin and then Richard Branson type of thing? And that allowed Enterprise Lab to then morph into, to what it is. So by 2016, Enterprise Lab was really kind of humming, but it was still very nucleus to me. It meant that I had to be everywhere on everything for things to happen. If Ketan doesn't show up, we don't win the contracts, and that's for my ego, that's brilliant, but for my bank balance for the business, it's not good. So we restructured. We built a board. We went into a managing partner network. I started to train people to become versions of me, and then I was using my brand influence in a way where we're saying, trust these people because they've come from my teachings, my learning. So you get me, but you don't get me as a direct source. That then evolved itself by 2018 to what we have today, which is a company that has 250 experts that are in their own niche deliveries, whether they're financial, marketing, law, whatever it needs to be. We then have program directors who work under managing partners, and they procure projects from 26 countries. We then bring the projects in. We understand what the need needs to be. We then outsource our experts particular parts of that project, which is still using my old business model mechanisms. And it allows us to then go off and work on some very elaborate, deep kind of projects where I don't no longer have to be front and center. Everything's still happening while I'm sitting here talking to you. And it's how it's marketed, how it's presented. Each individual entity has their own way of doing things. So from there on in, with the focus on personal development, always of people, it's always been about people. The company is now regarded as talent innovation and business innovation. We build better people that build better businesses that serve economies. That's the rule of what Enterprise Lab is. But then at the tail end of last year, I was very driven. Sorry, not the tail end of last year, the end of January and early February, as I came back out of COVID myself, I wanted to make some changes in my own personal life, which gave me then freedom to be able to go off and do other things, still accelerating this whole personal development space. So I did something that I should have done 6 years ago. I started to give myself permission to do these things. It's amazing how much we don't give ourselves permission for. Okay. And from this, I started my own podcast series because I thought it's fun, a bit like yourself. I wanted to connect in and I wanted to get into the minds of people, etc. And it's all about having fun. It's not this, oh, we drive a podcast to then build a business or anything like that. I launched my foundation, which is my philanthropy efforts. Since launching, we've sent 2 million masks to Jamaica for the COVID effects there. We've sent over 20,000 books about business leadership and mindset to 20 countries, putting it into the hands of people that need those types of books. I was open to then start to build my VC, which will help the creatives industry here in the UK. All of this is built on the same notion of one thing: building better people, which is it's not what I'm passionate about. That is me, So what is it that it's not what I do, it's what I be. I am a being of someone that is here to support someone else to get to where they need to get to. And my professional title is business influencer or business strategist. I'm the person that works out the way that you get to where you want to get to. So that kind of reinforces the journey of where we've been. And obviously along the way, lots of different experiences, lots and lots of stories. I think we'd need 5 hours, 6 hours on this call to go through all of those. But those experiences make me the expert. And that's the message that I want to get out to anyone that's listening to this right now. You are an expert, but you're not an expert of something. You're an expert of the experiences that you've had in something. Remember that. So, the more experiences that you can recounter and understand the learning from that, the more you become the expert within that environment itself. I have had, I've had a very vibrant career so far. I've had the fortunate or luck, whatever you want to call it, to be able to travel the world, be in different places, experience different things, work with people who never get this type of service, to see the change in them, to be inspired, to almost, killing myself with getting malaria or being out and down and out with COVID, which I think is just part and parcel of the life cycle itself. You intensify yourself, certain things are going to give in this particular way. But I think when you do that, you can really start to impress yourself into the marketing and sales. And that's why I always say to people, don't sell the problem, just sell your solution.
Okay. The sense that I get is that what you've managed to do is operate at scale. And I think, what do I think about that? I think it must be like a breakthrough, like the difference between operating at scale and not must be like chalk and cheese. It must be completely different. And it must be like you go through a ceiling to actually function like that.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that? How do you continuously do that?
I think I'm not driven by money. I'm not driven by my ego. I used to be, I won't deny that. I think, 5-6 years ago, it was very, Ketan's there, an expert. Ketan's well renowned. He's, well sought after, etc. And I'll only, get out of bed to work with particular people at this level. Um, but that had its time, it's had its space, and it's had its cause and effects. I feel part of my health issues were related directly to the ego that I was portraying and pushing out there. I think when you come back to the question that you've asked about, operating in a scalable environment, everyone has an opportunity. There's a window that will come. And it's not just a case of walking through the door and taking that opportunity. It's being fully immersed. So let me tell you that this wasn't happening until one random message came in from the Foreign Commonwealth Office of Guatemala, where they asked, the person said, "We've been given your details by the UK office, etc., for someone that could come and do a business expert." I didn't even know where Guatemala was back then. The only thing I referred to it was I heard of it once in an Incredible Hulk film. Anyway, I got onto the email and I said, "Could we have a call?" They rang me literally 5 minutes later, and I told them the honest truth. And they said, "Look, we want you to come and do this. Would you be up for it?" And I just said, "Yeah." I didn't even know if I could, how I'm going to get there, what's going to be like, nothing. I just said yes. It's a bit like the whole Branson thing about, figure out how to build the plane on the way
Say
down,
yes
basically.
and say yes and work
So
out how to do it.
there are certain elements of things where it's not a risk that you're taking; it's you're jumping in with the with this fundamental. You don't know exactly what the end is going to look like, but you've got this innate feeling that you've got to be here, you've got to be present. And it's from that you then have to push yourself and exert yourself into the market. So when I was working in Guatemala, I worked in Honduras and San Pedro Sula. Then I said, there are people from Colombia there, so that I was working with. So I kind of start to impress myself, and I'm like, well, if I can be here, I can be there. I can be there. And for me, rather than trying to plan, that's why I always say planning is bad, strategy is good. I started to push out and say, right, okay, if they want me, I'm going to work out how I can be effective. If they don't want me, I move on to the next one. So my only strategy in life was try and build the next one, try and build the next one, try and build the next one, try and build the next one. Just keep going step by step. Like you've said before on this interview, it's not about the volume of customers that you have, but it's about how much value you have within those. So I just kind of stepped and built, and it's in that intensity where I started to feel that it's not that I can manage myself and my ego. I always keep my capability and capacity in check. Always ask the question to myself: am I capable of this? Is it within my capacity? And if the answers to those are yes, that's what drives and motivates me to build and scale. So anyone out there that's looking to scale and grow, I know we've heard the whole thing of think big, think big, start small, scale fast. But the scale part of it is what that is that's multiplication. That's not growing. Growth is when you add more into one basket. Scaling is when you add more baskets. So what you've got to be in the business of is building the systems that allow you to bring multiple baskets, not add more customers into the same basket. That's not you scaling. And again, that's the bit that most people get unstuck with. So understand that there is only a certain amount of capability and capacity you will have. By bringing others into the journey, that allows you to then scale, or by bringing resources around you, it will help you to grow.
Okay, good. Are you ready for a challenging question?
Go for it.
Everything you've said so far sounds to me to be eminently sensible and not disruptive at all.
Yep.
So why do you call yourself, what do you call yourself? The chief disruptor. Why do you call yourself the chief disruptor?
Because that's the exact part about this. Well, number one, actually, the story of this is when I got David Cameron to agree to support my project, Youth Enterprise Live. I was in Downing Street. It involves a little bit more drink than I should have had back then, and me manhandling him. After I finished, and I mean,
You
I
got
literally
smashed
grabbed.
with David Cameron, is that what you're telling us?
No, I got smashed before I met him, and then actually, as I was pitching him, he was walking away. I lost my lines. I grabbed his arm basically, and then I thought, that's it. They'll never let Indians back into Downing Street. But the truth of it is I got the letter. I did the event, and when I got summoned back to Downing Street, he said it himself when we sat down and given the results. He says, "You're quite a disruptor," and I'm like, "Oh, that I like that." But actually, the if you think about the central connotation of what a disruption and disruptive is, it's about banging the same drumbeat over and over again, and allowing people to actually then understand what it means to them. So, very quick analogy I'll have for you: if you have a rock and you throw this rock into a lake, for example, or a pond, the rock itself is whatever it is, the entity, the service, the deliverable, whatever it is. Throwing it and launching it is the actual action. The disruption doesn't happen until the rock hits the water. The rock then falls to the bed of the pond or the lake. The water gets disrupted, and that's what we call negative and positive energy. People for it, people against it. But eventually, like water, everything kind of comes back to its natural level. It finds a place. And it's at that point that what happens is ripples start to form, and those ripples get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until they hit the banks of the pond or the lake or whatever it is that you want to call it. So for me, why do I call myself a chief disruptor? Because I have simple principles that are often overlooked, or which I continuously bang and bang and bang, and then people actually, when they see the value of it, they actually understand that this is how it works. So I'm disruptive, not from a disruptive good or a disruptive bad. It's purely that I love throwing rocks into ponds. Basically, that's that's what it comes down to, really. Does
Perfect.
that answer your question?
It answers the question, and I think just because you're talking about it now, like disruptive historically has a negative connotation. Like I was disruptive in school. Like I wasn't a monster, but I was
Yeah.
the Larry kid. So I was described as disruptive. So the historical connotation is kind of that disruption is bad. People shouldn't disrupt things. I suppose that's a conservative view.
Yeah.
Then it kind of had a more positive connotation when disruptive industries got disrupted. And then it kind of went back again when we realized that the new disrupted forms weren't actually that much better for the whole world
Yeah.
than we thought. But I think you're right. And I think the disruption is if things aren't right, then they should be disrupted. Like for me, people's attitude to sales and marketing isn't right. And so so maybe I'm also a disruptor, obviously not on your scale.
So there is a fine balance between disruption and distraction.
Okay. Oh man, we need another 5 hours to talk about that. You're
So
also
all I'll say is most people associate disruption when actually they mean distraction. So when you're at school, you're disruptive in the sense that you don't listen to the teacher, or you do things the way you want to do that, or you're getting, you're hyping up the other students. But it's a distraction from what the teacher wants to do. And
yes,
99% of the time, disruption is often moved for distraction. My job is to change. In order for you to change, I have to disrupt you.
yes, good.
Not
Okay,
distract you, I have to disrupt you.
yes, and if they're coming from something that isn't serving them, then of course it's an entirely positive disruption, is what it is.
Correct.
Okay, good. I
Correct.
feel like you've answered question number 3, which is what is your recommendation for people who want to get better, who maybe want to scale their businesses or they want to,
Yeah.
invest more in strategy. They need to
The
get.
simple thing is come back into yourself, ask the questions about capability and capacity first. Be more honest with yourself before you try to implore anything or introduce anything into your business life. Because 99% of the time, you are your own worst enemy. You are the only person holding yourself back from particular things because you believe. And remember, if we spell out the word believe, is the word lie in the middle of it, basically. The lie that you keep telling yourself that you've got to be this particular thing when you don't. So
Good.
it all comes down to the way that you interrogate capacity and capability in your own self, in your own life, and then in your business.
Yeah, you see, this is something that I forgot. I started selling advertising in magazines in about 1995.
Mm.
And my sales manager, who I'm hoping to have a conversation with, or I've seen him once probably since I worked for with him 25 years ago. But
Yeah,
he said, look, we've got an opportunity here because we've only got so many pages and you need to generate so much per page. So we had a yield. And he said,
yeah,
interestingly, your yield is basically half your rate card. So that gave me license to offer a 50% discount and still hit my yield. So
yeah,
the genius of that was within about 6 weeks, I was doing target because I was saying to everyone, look, if you buy this for 12 months, I can give it to you for 6 months' money. And
yeah,
everyone's like, well, that's ridiculous. And they did it. But I forgot about that completely. This sense of yield, this sense of what am I actually, like in
yeah,
the way you're saying it now, what do I have the capability to deliver? And what do I have the capacity to deliver? And
yeah.
that should be it. But because people aren't doing strategy, they're not understanding their yield. And that has to be
Because they make,
stressful.
yeah, they make strategy very complex. When it, as I said at the top of this call and this interview, strategy should be simple. Keep it simple. Keep your deliverables clear. That way, you can see it. If you see it, you believe it. You know
Yes.
that that's the whole thing. But you have to consistently audit it. You can't
Yes.
just say, "I made this strategy in 1985." And it's the same thing that we're doing here. The only, even if you think about it, Bic pens, yeah,
Yep.
Bic pens. The biro pen itself hasn't changed in its, they haven't changed the nib or the structure. Nothing on the product has changed, but the whole strategy around Bic has changed monumentally. The way they market themselves, the way they position themselves, their association, their advertising, everything changes with the times, but the product hasn't changed one bit. So you have to, it's not a one hit wonder where you build a strategy and just leave it and just sit on that. You have to constantly work on it. And the
Yeah.
simpler you keep it, the easier it is for you to benchmark and change.
Excellent. Cool. Okay, so we're up to question number 4. Question number 4 is a really easy, quick one. What should people read?
Wow. So there are several different books that I think are really really good. So the Chimp Paradox is one that I tend to lean on. It's really good because it's all about it's about the way you think from within. Um, there's a series of books by an author called Matthew Said, which talks about disruptive innovation, which are quite good. There's Matt Ridley and the Rational Optimist. I think that's a fantastic book. You will see that all of these are more around psychology than anything else, because actually everything, whether it's sales, marketing, or business, is all psychology driven. Um, but there's another one other recommendation I have is by a guy called Anthony D. Scott, and it's the Little Black Book of Innovation. Oh, and then one more called Frugal Innovation. These are books not designed to teach you how to innovate, but they are books which will give you the psychology of innovation. And remember, innovation is it's small things that you do different to evoke a large change in results. And so I'm a big kind of fan of business or leadership or psychology type of books. It's all in the mindset, how we perceive, how we interpret, and then how we deliver. So those are the short stack of books that I would recommend.
Excellent, fantastic. And then the last question is who can you set me up with who might enjoy or at least endure to have one of these conversations with me?
Enjoy or endure. I love that. There are a couple of people in my network who I think would do phenomenal on this. So there's a chap, my business partner at 77. His name's Michael Jacobson. Michael's an experienced entrepreneur in the arts, entertainment, and leisure industries. Mainly Australian entrepreneur that's come over to the UK, but Michael was the guy behind taking the IP or the rights to Dirty Dancing from Lionsgate, turning it into a theatre production, putting it into 30 countries before selling. the whole thing, handing it over. He's phenomenal. The connections this guy has is just phenomenal. I mean,
Excellent.
so he would be someone that I think he talks a lot about strategy as well, but also from a mindset perspective as well. This is why we get on so well. But he's very much more around how to. He's an evangelist around creativity and startups, and in particular the creativity in startups as well. So I think he'd do really well on the show. There's another chap called Piers Mummery. Piers is a phenomenal guy, in and out of loads of different businesses. He's been in the sort of garden centre world. He's been in property. He's been in all sorts of different areas. He's a business startup coach, and he does a lot around the areas of sales, marketing, but also about leadership within business. And he has a lot of insight around energy leadership as well. So definitely get him on. I think he'll do this at a drop of a hat. I'd like to mix it up a little bit as well, and bring some females in. In particular,
Please.
there's one called Julie Barber. Julie's got over 20 years experience in the financial services industries, but she also does a lot in startup innovation and investment readiness. So this whole thing around pitching, I think, is a very important topic when it comes to sales and marketing, because you're effectively pitching all the time. Julie has just joined my board at 77 as a non-exec director, and her portfolio is around investment readiness and financial conduct auditing. So I'll definitely have a chat with her to come on board. And then from a slightly diverse perspective, I've got another lady called Joanna Bailey. She's a young person. I've worked with her when through Enterprise Lab, and helped her get investment into her early stage businesses. She does a lot in the diversity EDI space, with her own recruitment consultancy, an agency called Blue Moon. But she's also an advocate or an ambassador for how to actually bring more diversity and inclusion into not into just the workspace, but into different industries. So I think maybe having someone like Joanna could be a slightly different edge to your guests.
Excellent. Brilliant. Thank you. So can I ask you, in the same way that Warren did, to maybe get together a little introduction?
No, of course. Yeah, of course you can. Of course you can. Yeah, I'll get those done actually for you. I'll get those done for you this week.
You almost messed up the whole thing, Ketan.
If this is still being recorded and going to be on for people to listen to, this is it, guys. This is how you do it. This is how you create leverage in the market. You get yourself to be endorsed into things. So referrals are much, much more powerful than pitching yourself into the market space. Being vouched for is a strong endorsement. So there are 3 types of traffic that you can think about. You can think about direct traffic, curated traffic, or endorsed traffic. Direct traffic is where you are just punching yourself. Curated traffic is where you work through with other people's lists. And endorsed is when you are introduced into someone by someone else. So, the success that you have with getting people onto your show is testament to the people that are endorsing them to come onto the show itself. So it's really good. I love the way that you do this. It's brilliant.
Fantastic. Thank you. And it's also so much more interesting, because this is now going somewhere, and I've got absolutely no idea who's going to recommend and how they're going to recommend and why they're going to recommend, So, yeah, it keeps it really, really interesting. So thank you so much for that bit of feedback. And thank you so much for your time today, man. I have thoroughly enjoyed this whole conversation. So what we'll do is we'll say the pretend goodbye for the audience now, and then we'll say goodbye after I stop recording, like human beings. So I've got one more question, which is there anything you should have said that you didn't say, or is there anything that you did say that you shouldn't have said?
Well, if it's said when it shouldn't have been said, oh well, life happens. And the other way around, no. I feel very fulfilled that um, I've expressed a lot, and I'm really just very happy and delighted that I've answered the questions that you've wanted. So if there is anything else, you'll just have to bring me back on another show. That's all.
Man, I really would love to do that because I think there's easily another hour and a half in this, and maybe more. So
Yeah,
maybe in 2 or 3 months' time, I'll give you another little nudge, and maybe we can have another conversation.
100%. That's brilliant.
The only issue I've got with you now is that I said to you before we started, "How do I pronounce your name?" And you didn't say, "Well, I pronounce it Ketan." You said Ketan, Ketan. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
I think you could have just told me it was Ketan. You call
I
yourself
like
Ketan.
I like people to feel comfortable with the way they say it. As I said to you, as long as you don't call me Fred. Someone did. They couldn't pronounce my name, so they called me Fred.
Oh my god.
Once I've been Kevin, Cretan. I've
Oh
had
my
all
god.
sorts. So don't worry. But I say Ketan. Some people say Keaton. Some people say
Okay.
Ketan. So whatever you're
Well,
comfortable with, my
it
friend.
will be Ketan now forever. Like, obviously, the way you call yourself is the way you should be called. So, thank you
Cool.
for your time, Fred.
My absolute pleasure, Doris.
I have thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you so much. I'm really going to look forward
You're
to
welcome.
speaking to you again soon.
Thank you.